with Jimmy Penguin. He's the founder of Community Scratch Games and Scratch Lords, and with countless albums, productions, and mastering credits, various musical aliases, bands, several titles in worldwide turntables battles, and it's had a huge impact on the world of scratch music and beyond. He's also a legend in the Street Fighter competitive gaming world. He recently released an album called Perfect KO, which we're going to have a chat about in a minute. And yes, all round music person from Galway who I bumped into several times along the way. The last time being an open ear in the Sunday morning of open ear. We were like both in the like dining room for about 10 minutes before we recognized each other because we were just like, whoa. You were like, Dan? I was like, Jimmy? So how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Good to be here on the show. You've been making waves on the internet with your yeah.
Chipping away.
You're
Consistent at least.
you're based in Bristol now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
7 months, 8 months now. I'm
Okay.
kind of settling into Bristol life. Bristol is, Bristol. Bristol's great.
Yeah. No, it's funny that you're there now, and like my record basically came out of there.
I just saw it was mastered in Bristol, yeah. Or
Yeah,
the dub was cut.
we cut the lacquers there, yeah. But the whole like the record label is based out of there.
Right.
Who I worked on the record with, is based out of there. So like the record came out of Bristol. It's my record. Like it came out of it's. I'm based out of Galway, but in Ireland. But the record really was brewed in Bristol. So from the partly conception, then the production of it, and then the actual cutting the lacquers with Henry in Dub Studio, and then Leighton in Vinyl Factory doing the pressing, and
is that in Bristol as well?
that London Vinyl Factory.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do like boutique cutting and kind of odd cutting, and so they did there's an etching on the record, stuff like that. So they do some of the more interesting stuff.
Yeah. So,
Dub,
but Dub Studio is that was closed for a while and then it reopened, I think, last year. And I was looking into, they do short runs, like you can get
yeah,
just one dub plate cut or just a few. So
yeah.
that looks seriously interesting.
Yeah, very cool service and really good guy. And yeah, was a big part of how we could get certain aspects of the record exactly how we wanted. Was a big part. Big thanks to him. Partly thanks to him. So
Right.
Yeah.
Hi, Coconut Frog. So tell us about the record, how it started to come into being.
Well, basically, it's kind of always been scratch records around, DJ tools, scratch records, whatever you want to call them. They used to be like people would make kind of just like wacky records for people to use in battles and stuff like that, and then people use that concept then to make like performance records. So there's huge like documentation on all of this. It goes quite deep, but like fundamentally, a guy called DJ Swamp put one sample revoluting infinitely on a record, so that on tour, because he used to tour with metal bands, so that if guys are jumping around on stage, even when your needle skips, it stays on the. If you can see that, that's a layout of like a scratch record. So needle skips, it stays on the same groove. You've
Is
the
it
same groove
is it like a single locked groove?
It's not locked. It keeps looping like a normal record, but it's the same sample looped over 133 BPM. So it's in sync. So it's like it's a gridded audio basically on the face of a record. So that was in the mid-90s. Guys started doing ideas like this, and then as time goes on, people just start doing more advanced stuff, more advanced cutting, more advanced concepts. Then all this is geared toward some of it live performance, but mostly the advancements are being taken places in battles, and people are trying to come up with. At this point, you couldn't use digital DJing in battles, so starting to cut your own records, do your own production, then cut them to your own lathes or your own one-off records, and then use them in the battles. It gave you you were able to stand out above everyone else. you could go back on that and say, like, now looking back, the guys who were using actual records is way more original, way more interesting. But at the time, it seemed way more impressive that people were able to use their own sounds. So it was a bit of a weird one. Fast forward a few more years, and then Serato and Final Scratch and everything all of a sudden are allowed in the battles. So you're not. So there was nothing impressive anymore about cutting your own record, because anyone could just press their own WAV and put it on the decks. So then this whole concept of doing your own records kind of gets really diluted, and it's not on a record anymore. It's just on Final Scratch, it's on a DVS. So you now can just press buttons, and you don't need to make interesting arrangements. You can just queue up whatever you want, whenever you want. So it stopped. There was basically no more innovations because of battling. There was no more cutting innovations happening. So the cutting innovations then started to come from people who were passionate about doing music. Around the same time as the battles started to allow digital software and stuff like that, there was like a big burst of scratch music. So people using turntables, not like in this bravado-ish kind of way, but more in a kind of instrumentational kind of, like similar to like the down tempo stuff, like Massive Attack, kind of that era, like that kind of sound, but done on just with turntables and live, maybe a few players performing it live, or maybe just one guy with a loop pedal or whatever. And so, but again, it's because it's music. It's like there wasn't much space for innovation. It's just like guys were making sample records, whatever, and then making songs. So there wasn't really much experimentation done in terms of what you can do musically with the turntable. It was more being looked at as a sample, like a playback device. So you create these records and you use the turntable as a playback device. So it's like a sampler. It wasn't being looked at too much as an instrument. And the people who do, like, there's millions of theses on, like, is the turntable an instrument? And this is why the turntable is an instrument. But none of them really broke down how fundamentally the turntable is actually an instrument in terms of musical fundamentals and what the machines are designed to do. They're just like, people use different forms of notation. They create these new forms of notation. They try and mimic traditional music notation, but they use like turntable language, and they try and overlap it, and they try and make it all make sense and justify it in hindsight. And but really, they're not showing anything new or special generally. So Vestax put out a turntable called the Controller One, which had a scale along the side, a programmable scale. But again, the problem was there isn't really. They only made 100 of them, and there isn't really the tools to use on this turntable. So if you take a normal record and put it on this turntable, you're using musical fundamentals, but on with like a random song that's written in a different key or whatever. Um, so there's limited tools and there's limited versions of this machine. So it took a lot of time for this thing to develop. Like, it's been 20 years since that turntable came out. They came out, they were probably about $1,000. Now they're like 30 grand on eBay because there's only 100 of them. So if you have one, you're like, I basically have to sell it. I need that money. Like, there's very rare instances of people that can afford to keep them. So a guy in UK, Christian Gerstad, he actually won the Scratch Games battle last month in Galway. He developed a thing called the Button Box. He was one of the original users of the Controller One. He developed a thing called the Button Box, which goes onto the side of a MIDI capable turntable. So again, these are quite rare, but you can get them, and that gives you the same capabilities of basically you can have access to a scale, programmable scale along the side of your turntable. Now you could just use any keyboard and put it above your turntable, to the side of your turntable, whatever. But it's just because the Controller One existed with these like buttons along the side. The idea is like, oh, you can scratch normally. Don't have to compromise your traditional playability or your playmanship, musicianship, but you have access to these buttons with, like, let's say your pinky or whatever here.
What are the buttons doing? Are they changing the pitch?
It's literally C to C. It's a scale on
Yeah.
but it's programmable, so it's not always C to C, and you can make it a scale. You can choose different scales and whatever. Most recently, Reloop put out a turntable that's just like a string of buttons at the bottom of the turntable. It's programmable, does a similar thing, but the torque isn't great, so it's kind of loose. Like, you play like C up to the next C up, and it's doing like mandatory portamento and not sticking to notes properly, and it's not great.
Yeah.
So yeah, using a Vestax, which has really good torque, and one of these button boxes which Christian invented, It's just a lot more reliable. More the whole MIDI thing like is annoying because like it's really hard to get your hands on these turntables. So another friend of mine, Backtrack, and this other guy, Rastery, who's known on YouTube for doing amazing stuff with Vestax, he's taken the firmware from the 3000s, which is the MIDI capable PDX, the Vestax. He's back engineered that firmware so that you can manually build a MIDI input into your turntable, and you can flash your firmware, and you can actually make any PDX 2000 into a MIDI performable So it's a bit more accessible thanks to that. It means you can take your €200 Vestax and a $5 piece on eBay, and or even like just the end of a cable, any MIDI cable, and you can make this turntable into like a PDX, a programmable MIDI programmable turntable.
Well, that's pretty mad. You
It's
can.
pretty cool, but again, it's like super innovation is being held back because of these restrictions. So for the last 20 years, it's been quite slow, other than these certain guys doing certain things. Christian himself then put out a record on DJ Woody's label about 5 years ago called Tones, which is funny because I've always wanted to do like a Tones record. I always had several ideas about something like that. So he did a record all in C called Tones. Um, it's not like earlier where I said it looped like 1.3 seconds over 133 BPM. It's actually just long recordings. So he played on a synth like, and he would like mess with the filter a bit or whatever. And so as you're scratching through it, there's a bit of progression or whatever, it's a bit more fluid or flowy kind of thing. He put out that record. No one's really been doing that. There's a worry when you're doing scratch records, especially with the making it all in C thing, or even just the fact that these turntables are kind of hard to come across. So you don't always want to make something that's exclusive to a few users. So the idea is if you make a record that's all in C, then you need a controller one or you need a button box to make use of it. So that's a worry from a behind the scenes kind of thing. When you're making a record, you want it to be usable by most people who have interest in it, right? So that was a worry. The other worry is you don't want people to you don't want to put out a record that's basically like a Jimmy Penguin song Tool record. Like you don't want everyone to just play the sounds on your record and them to sound like you.
Yeah.
You want them to be able to play their own songs using sounds you're providing or whatever. Or you don't want it to have too much of your own stamp on it.
Yeah. That
So
makes sense. But on the Tones record, the previous one that you mentioned by the UK guy,
yeah,
it's in the where every tone a C. Is that what you mean by
everything was in C. Yeah.
like in C, meaning because like it could be in the key of C and be different notes, or was it actually the note C every single tone?
Pretty much everything was in C. I was a bit looser then when I made my record. Like there's some stuff that the scale starts in C, or the root note of a chord is C, or
Yeah.
mine's a bit more lenient. His one was more strict, and it was made specifically for the controller one.
Right.
I wanted to kind of tailor mine a little bit more that it's usable kind of for everyone.
Yeah.
There's another thing in scratch records in general, just more or less musical ones, but more just scratch records. Vestax have a -50 function, which is basically 2 octaves down. The reason that's handy for us, it gives your 1.8 seconds is the revolution of a record on normal standard speed. So if you go to -50, you now got 3.6.
Right.
So you can take twice the length of sound, play it at double speed, and then cut it to the record. Then now when you go -50, that double speed goes to normal speed. So now you have 3.6 seconds. So you can like a full like 4 bars of a rap or something, let's say, at a certain time. That's at whatever 66 BPM or whatever. Instead of half of that. So it becomes very useful and again for scratching it becomes fancy because now your record is going very slow, so your hand movements start to sound a lot faster. So it's interesting for that. That was something that people started doing in the early 2000s as well. You get a twice as long sample, and your scratching starts to double in pitch, kind of frequency. It sounds like you're doing a lot more. You could do like way more subtle movements, but that's like really alive and actiony. So that was really cool. But again, not everyone has a Vestax. So you're trying to find a happy medium where the sound still sounds okay on a Technic or at -8 on a Technic, but most players are going to be playing it back at -50 on a Vestax. So you're trying to find happy mediums there. So there's a lot of things you're trying to balance to get like across the board. Everyone could potentially use this record, but but also you're trying to put it in pockets where it's really, really, really amazing at these for these certain players. There's people who are using certain things, certain equipment or whatever it is.
How when you're saying minus 50, is it 50 minus 50?
-50, yeah. So on a normal turntable Technic, you have -8 +8.
Yeah,
Then there's the Stantons have like -8 +8, and then there's like a button you can press to make it twice as much. So now you have -16 +16.
yeah,
Then on a Vestax you have +10, -10, and then a separate fader which gives you -60, -50, +50.
right,
Vestax, the max you can go down is -60, and the max you can go up is +60.
right.
But what's more interesting is the 50, because 50 is an exact. If you
One
take it
octave.
down and divide it by half, down it's one octave down. If you double it up, you get two octaves up in terms
Yes,
of
of course. Yes, of course.
yeah. So that plays into what we're doing now on the
So the
turntable.
+8 -8 on a Technics is 8%, is it?
8%, yeah, exactly.
Right, right.
Yeah, and like so yeah, 2% on a turntable when you pitch it up is exactly one semitone. So that's where
That's hard to understand though, because 2%, there's like 25, or how many 2% are there in 50? Doesn't like divide in, but it's confusing.
yeah, right. I see what you mean. Yeah,
2% being a semitone, which is a twelfth of an octave, but
yeah,
it's not a twelfth of 50.
yeah. See, this is I know a while back I mentioned this to you that like there's this conversation that kind of needs to take place.
Yeah.
And
There's-
DJs need to communicate more to traditional musicians that are in the knowledge of this stuff, and we need to like kind of elaborate on this stuff. But yeah, there's fundamentals that exist on these turntables that need to be kind of explored, and there's not many people that are actually doing it.
Yeah.
But again, when you're talking such small numbers like 2%, it could be 2.25 or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sonically, it's like, oh, it's I'm a semitone down. Because even like if you just touch the platter, physically you can trick your ear into dropping the pitch. What feels like you're going down a semitone, like pitch bending down to a semitone.
Yeah.
So you're probably roughly
Close
wrong,
enough.
but it sounds right. So it's probably something like that is happening. Like maybe the -50 is it sounds right to your ear that you've just dropped two octaves on the turntable, but it could be that it's 52 is actually the number or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I get that. Yeah. It's so like on normal well, not normal instruments. The piano is kind of one of the rarer instruments where you have the exact pitches,
yeah,
which isn't even, it's only like a more recent kind of
yeah,
fixture if that's what a semitone is. But if someone's singing or playing a, you know, instrument with no frets, like a violin or whatever, then it's more,
yeah.
it's in
The
between.
turntable is more punk of an instrument than a classical instrument. I think you know what I mean. It has that
Yeah.
I think element.
But
But
like for sure, it's just like, you know, you go, if it's close enough, it sounds fine.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's the thing. If it's four turntables all speaking the same language, or even like at one point, I just think it's interesting that they all have their own slight difference. Like a Vestax is 10 and 50. A Stanton can go 8, 16, in some cases 32. A Technic is usually 8, maybe 8 and 16. So I look at it as like a mandolin, a guitar, a bass, a double bass. I look at the different types of turntables as potentially different accompanying instruments to each other because of the different places they can go sonically in terms of the pitch ranges. And they all link up in some way or another. Like 3345 is common on all of them.
So
Um,
33. Yeah. Yeah.
33 to 45, like every turntable has that. So that's
Yeah.
something they all have in common. The -8, the -10, -8 plus 10, -8 plus 8, -10 plus 10, minus.
Someone just commented there with the 24 semitones is 2.08333333, which 20, that's two octaves. But a
Yeah.
50% jump is one octave. So what's
It's,
that for?
it's one octave up and two octaves down.
If you go -50, it's
Minus,
two.
-50, you go two octaves down. Yeah.
Oh,
So the turntable, the Vestax turntable is a three octave instrument. That's
is it
what it can play.
is it not like at zero you're at like one octave, and plus 50 you're an octave
One
up,
octave up, yeah, and then
and
at
-50?
zero you're back down one, and then at -50 you go two down.
Why not? Why is not one octave down? Like,
If the record is at C2 and you're playing it at zero, you go 50% up, you're at C3.
Yeah.
And if you go back down to 0, you're at C2. If you go minus 50, if you go straight to minus 50, you skip C1 and you land on C0.
Why is it not going down to C1 when you go from
It's
C?
double the amount. I guess the fidelity of halving rather than doubling is twice the amount.
That's I'm not computing that, but I believe you though. Okay, so have
Yeah,
you got
that is one thing I am sure of is you,
yeah.
because I've mapped it on keyboards. But
So if you go down like a quarter of the way, you're down an octave.
yeah, so you don't really have an easy way to land at minus 25%.
Yeah.
There isn't really a notch there or anything, and it's a small fader. It's a smaller fader with a longer range.
Right.
So what that fader actually does is it's digital and it's going in 0.5% increments. So it's really hard to like choose which of those increments you're on. So you tend to either be at minus 50 or 0.
Right.
When you're at plus 50, the turntable is moving quite fast. So that
Yeah.
higher octave is rarely actually useful. Now, there will be compositions where you can use it, but you won't be controlling the turntable when it's that fast. You can use the pitch. You might, fade in. Now, the other cool thing about all this stuff is just like the fader. All mixers nowadays have filters on them, so that's cool, obviously. But you get to use the fader and the EQs as like your ASDR. So that's the other
Cool.
side of all of this pitch stuff is you're like, okay, so we have pitches, but how you shaping the sounds. So you're shaping the sounds like with curves and stuff on the. So that's where it kind of gets fun and turning into kind of synthesis. Yeah.
Pretty cool. So will you show us like some stuff in your studio?
We'll have a look. So yeah, I just tore down my main studio a couple of years ago, and I've just been building this setup. So I got my hands on some of these PDX 3000s. So
Where'd you get them from?
I got them in from Germany.
Right.
Two different sellers. As with any of these adverts, eBay, whatever, Gumtree kind of places, there's always a bit of hesitancy with legitimacy and all these, and these are
Yeah.
rare turntables and all this sort of stuff. So it took a couple of months of like planning and prep and talking to people and getting them in, but finally they're in. Build a little bit of a temporary setup and just kind of testing some stuff out. So and I like these Korg monologues. So I've been using them. I use them in like a small setup. So I said I'd use them. Just have these reloop stands as well that I won. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to set it up as a temporary setup. So I got the one PDX 3000 here controlled by this monologue, and the other PDX 3000 here controlled by this monologue.
Oh,
And this is the Pioneer S9, which came out like 8 or 9 years ago at this point, but it's still like new tech to me because they were super expensive when they came out. So I'm
yeah.
super excited about that. I kind of sold a bunch of equipment like last year and kind of got my hands on this. So these two turntables is like the final piece of the puzzle of getting this mixer and developing this record. And
Right.
so yeah, so I made this record. It's all in C.
You talking there? Just closing the window.
It's locked grooves. It's 36 lock grooves. The first part of the record is um, all drum hits, so individual drum hits. So it's like a drum machine, and then it turns into like a sample record. It's like drum breaks, drum machines, and then drum breaks from actual acoustic, like from records, drum breaks. Then it goes into like arpeggios, like scales of arpeggios, and then it goes into chords, kind of like notes of chords, and then it goes into lock grooves of tones. So all from like kind of organy kind of thing, some cello-y stuff, and bass synths, just real deep bass synths. So that's your kind of what your low note you'll be losing that using like in a dance music track, like your low. That's what you want your minus 50 to be hitting
Right.
because you're really going to be going lower than that. So you're having your minus 50 hit that. Your 0 is going to be 2 octaves above that, and so your 1 is so you have your like 3 octaves that you're going to be using. So the first thing I did when I touched this the other day, I played the C on the record. I started playing this kind of like jungly bass line. It was something real simple like F, C sharp, C, and I had the turntable set to MIDI, and I was playing with the keyboard, and I was like, "Damn, that sounds dope." I turned the MIDI off, and immediately the C was in the scale. So minus 50 was the root note of the thing. Plus 10 on the turntable was the other note I was playing, and then 45 and -10 randomly was the C sharp.
Right.
So all of a sudden, I didn't need the MIDI at all to play this same line, and I was able to, with both hands, play the C up to the +10, which is the F, hit 45, and with my other hand drop to -10, and you could almost hear the slide too down on the pitch, which is like this kind of portamento thing.
Yeah.
So one hand I'm doing the filter here, and the other hand, one hand I'm doing the filter, and occasionally doing some of the pitch stuff, and with the other hand I'm doing the pitch stuff. And all of a sudden, like the first line I played on the keyboard, oh cool, I got access to a keyboard to play a turntable. All of a sudden, that same line was available with a couple of techniques by hand on any existing turntable. So that was really interesting, and it just started making me think about like start to think about this stuff again of like, like I said earlier, many people have approached this subject of, is a turntable an instrument? And I said for years that no, but we apply musical techniques to an audio playback device. So like the spoons is an instrument, but it's not really, is it? It's an instrument in the moment, but it's not fundamentally an instrument. So it's similar with turntables. People argue that it's an instrument, but fundamentally they cannot show that it really is an instrument. They're just showing that it's a playback device and we apply musical technique to it. But so yeah, I'm gonna try and do some basic, write some sort of document about practical turntable music theory,
Yeah.
because it's all there and it's built into the machines. It's not, we didn't invent this stuff. It's already there. It's in the fundamentally it's in the machines how they work. That there's an association with electronics and musical rules. They line up in some way that this stuff isn't an accident.
That's yeah, super interesting. Richie there in the comments said he would buy that record. So how could he buy it?
You can get it from cutandpasterecords.com. If you're in Ireland, I have a couple of copies myself. So you can save on the UK import charges there or whatever. So you can just DM me on Insta or whatever.
How many did you get pressed up?
We do 500 copies normally. So yeah, we have the Scratch Lords is like my band. Me from Galway, Cymatic, who I worked on this record with, from Bristol. Dejaculate from Dublin, and Jimmy Manipulate from Brighton. So it's like 4 cities, 4 DJs, full improvisation shows. We never rehearse. We just do full improvisations when we perform together. We perform twice a year. Once in Galway at the Scratch Games, once in Brighton at the Scratch Barbecue. And that's
Right.
2 shows we do a year.
Is the record like more expensive than normal to make? Like would
It would be if
guess
we
it
were a
is.
normal record label, probably would charge loads of money for all the work that's gone into it. But we've been told we're more of a charity. We operate more of like a charity than a record label. But yeah.
And when you're making a locked groove, like how does that? I suppose when it's just a tone, it's a bit easier to understand. That it can just go around and around. But when it's like, I've got some records that where the track ends in a locked groove,
Yeah.
so
So the
you're just
track,
like, hey,
the
this
track,
hasn't changed in ages.
the track is 133 BPM for a start.
Okay,
Yeah. So
right, okay, right.
record revolves at 133.333333333 infinitely. On
At 33.
Ableton, it'll only show you 133.33.
Yeah,
But you type
it's
133.333333 and hit enter. Now that's a different grid on Ableton,
yeah,
even though they only show you the 2 threes decimals. But you have just created a different size grid on your DAW that you
right.
don't know about. So it is there. The numbers can be input there. So we use 333.333 just as a generic that we know we all use it. But so if you do like there's the maths for like 3-4-4-4-5-4 or 88 is the 3-4 equivalent, 133 is 4-4, 166 I think is the but some people prefer to do scratch records in 3-4 or 5-4 depending on what they're trying to do, and so that's why those are interesting. I just work in 133.
Yeah,
But yeah, so that's the main thing. When you have a record that's automatically going into a lock groove or something at the end, they just the track is at 133, and the
right,
engineer just stopped the arm moving for the last groove, and then they lift the arm, and so it just
right.
locks. So, but like some labels or whatever, pressing plants will just have this. Cutting engineers will have technology to program all that by automation, but
Right.
Henry doesn't have that. So we had to do it all manually. He DJ'd this record to make it. He actually live had to like DJ, like lift the needle at the right time, push it forward, drop it,
Oof.
let it go 10 revolutions, then stop the arm moving for exactly one revolution, then lift it. Then, so he actually, it's like DJing the process to cut a record like this, you know?
That's amazing.
It's very,
It's the
very, very
skill
cool.
involved.
Insane skill. And like it, so we cut one dub plate, and then so I recorded that dub plate on Serato and sent it over to me, and then we were going to cut the lacquer like the next day. So the dub plate was the test, and then the lacquer is very expensive. If you mess that up, it's a couple of $100 to replace. So we did one trial run on plastic, and then we did me and Side tweaked a couple of bits based on that, and then we did the final press. Everything came out perfectly, and we sent it off, and it's just like this huge moment because we'd been working on it for years. Like it started 7 or 8 years ago. Really, this process for me, this particular record.
Wow.
Then all of a sudden, it was like, right, we're finishing it, we're putting it out, and it was like holy shit. So yeah, we spent like a couple of months earlier this year just like getting it to the finish line. Like so many years put into it already. Though we have all the material there, we just need to just get it executed now. So it was like yeah, super interesting process to like kind of delay something for so long, and then I started battling again. I used to be a battle DJ years ago. I stopped, whatever. We could talk for hours about that stuff, but I started battling again in 2011 because I wanted to promote this record. So I was like, I need to win this title so that I kind of get my name back out there again in the scratch scene, and then drop this record, and it won't be like, who is this guy? It's like, oh, Jimmy just won this battle. He just dropped this record. Cool. So I'm trying to create this momentum. So I won UK Ireland IDA in 2021. I'd been competing in those battles since 2004. So it took 17, 18 years to finally get my title. And then the record is supposed to follow up with that, you know. So, but then the record just came out 2 months ago. So it took me like from 4 years from winning the battle to getting the record finished. Like so, even though like it was like winning the battle was like final stages, right? It's time to get this record done. It's like it still took another 4 years to get it to kind of where we wanted, you know. And
And I definitely relate to the long gestation periods. Like I 2004 is when I released ZOiD versus Musicians Volume 1. And then I immediately started working on Volume 2, and it was like 17 years later when it was finally came out.
insane. Yeah, I'm
So
25 years DJing this year. So
wow, that's a good milestone.
yeah, so it's good. I just did my album, The Birth of the Sun, and dropped Perfect KO, and I did a tour of Ireland, and
Yeah.
did CSG 19. So I'm like, yeah, it's like a nice year to have done like a big chunk of stuff, and it's kind
Yeah.
of nice that the record has kind of waited another couple of years, and it's all landing on now. My
Are you getting great feedback coming in? I've seen some like really good stuff like with the Perfect KO record. Are you seeing people making music with it?
yeah, that was the big thing. Was like so excited about seeing what people are going to do with it. Like that was the whole thing. Once it was created, I was like so excited about that. And we get test presses. Everyone gets test presses. We got 5 test presses. We sent one to our friend in um, Cornwall, Joe Clockwork. He is like he's. Do you know Andy Naive Ted? Like that
Yeah.
stuff. He is like the UK version of that. So like oddball scratching, very different. Not hip hoppy, like really hip hop, but not traditional hip hop. Um, so he's like the UK version of that. He got the test press and within a couple of days had this ridiculous track sent to us. And so like it was the first thing we saw, and it was within days. Like no warning, nothing. He just sent it to us. There's this amazing video already someone has done. It's like almost too good. Like the level was so high. I was like, fuck, this that might actually turn people off even trying to use the record, you know, it's like so good.
Is
But
that on YouTube?
it's on Instagram. It was going around at the start. You probably saw it was like a looping thing.
Yeah.
He plays this melodic thing and he's reversing the turntable, so and then it drops, changes into him cutting over the beat. You probably saw it was really impactful, really good. Just top down camera over the hands.
Cool.
It was so strong, and it was like really set the bar high for anyone trying to post content when they got the record. You know, day one you get your record and you're just like, well, shit, I'm not going to do anything like Joe's put out like already, you know. But yeah, that was really exciting because the bar was so high, and it was super unique to Joe, like what he had done. He hadn't used the record how 90% of people will use it. A lot of people will hear. like a lot of scratchers are just going to want to find the cool sample on it, because one
Yeah.
side is all samples, the other side is all instruments. It's like a VST basically, one side of it. But there is a traditional scratch record aspect to it as well. So a lot of guys will just look for the scratch sounds on it and they won't do too much. But then the other guys will be they will kind of just use it like a VST. Like they'll use the sounds on it and they'll play around with it and stuff. What Joe did was totally different. Like he made a composition out of it in a way that he would with normal records or whatever. It's like really super specific to him what he did, which is super cool. But even the guys, when we were testing out stuff, like Jack did a few things with it, it's super unique. And whatever I do with it is it just they all sound super unique. Everyone so far that's kind of tested it has done something that sounds like them. It doesn't
Yeah.
sound like they're using my record. It sounds like just them doing dope shit. So
Sounds
that's
like what you want. Yeah.
yeah, really
The
cool.
question there from Richie in the comments: did the crowd change a lot over the years? I think he's talking about the scratch battles playing from the when was the you started 2011?
The scratch games.
No, the
So
you
when
taking part in
I started battling in 2004.
2004.
Because like I was a techno DJ, and then the techno scene got really heavy, and all the Shrance stuff happened, and journalism started being like very negative toward that the youth, like the next wave, and I was kind of in between the two waves.
Yeah.
I kind of just felt like to hell with all that noise. I'm not getting involved, and so I kind of started scratching big
Right.
time. The other technical, like I was into Dave Clark, technical DJing, trick mixing, this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I turn my back on all of that stuff, and so I look for the next technical kind of style of DJing I can find, which is hip hop DJing. And I grew up listening to rap music and stuff like that as well. So suited me down to the ground. Did some music with Naive Ted, formerly DJ Deviant. We did like live compositions, 3 turntables, traditional scratch records, and just normal records, and just do compositions. Um, and we competed together once a year as well in the battles. And then they ended in Ireland in 2007, and we started the scratch games. So that's when the scratch games started. Um, so yeah, the DMCs in the early days was very much it was the end of days for the Irish scene, but it was the early days for me. I was still very in the traditional hip hop side of things, and the editing your own records had just started coming in. The guys who were winning world titles and stuff were all making their own records. The guys at the battle in Ireland were all still kind of using traditional records at this point, bar maybe the top guys or whatever. I was like coming fourth in these areas, like around fourth in the country when I was competing, 2004, 5, and 6. And then the games, the whole point was like there was going to be no DJ battle, so we're like, let's run something in Galway that's just an excuse for all the high level scratchers to meet up and kind of do it. It was like 5-a-side DJs versus MCs on the day 2, kind of, real community scratch games. So it was a play on community games.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like just a bit of silly, bit of crack, get people together, and it just went so well. We just kept running it, and like it's number 20 next year. So it's been running 19 years now. So like,
It's class.
yeah. So in that aspect, the scene, the like we represent everything at our events, like techno, hip hop,
Yeah.
all dance music, all sorts of live music, all sorts of rap music, kind of every part of hip hop, every part of electronic music.
Yeah.
The cool thing about that is the crowd is like there, and the same crowd for all weekend, same crowd. Like the people who are there to watch their friend who's like an electro DJ, they're also up the front for the scratch battle.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah. Have you seen off topic, completely different, but DJ Mech just kind of started doing these videos on Twitter a few months ago only, I think, and they're pretty interesting.
I've seen the stuff on Instagram. I haven't seen the stuff on Twitter. It's probably the same stuff.
Yeah, probably the same. Yeah.
The dub mixing kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And like yeah, Mech's a legend. Like Mech was before my time, obviously. When I would have come across Mech when he was Rero's DJ in the Mantua days.
Yeah.
That's when I first would have come across him, and like the kind of old school guy. But to me, like I was like kind of new school for him at the time, but like for me, his sound and everything DJ was just like so mind blowing. Like so good. The old school sounded so fresh to me because I just wasn't used to hearing it,
Yeah.
Are
we able to hear something with the Perfect KO record?
I'm not sure. Let's see. So the cool thing with this Pioneer is that usually the guys like us, you would use like loop pedals and stuff like that. You've got like your you've got like your Boss RC20 was the old one we used to use, just a small 2 pedals. Now they have the big 5 pedals and all these kind of things.
Yeah.
And you can record as long as you want.
Yeah.
On this Pioneer, it just has a delay effect on it.
Yeah.
But if you set it to 4, so like 1 bar, and then you set it to full volume, and you do a tap tempo, I don't even have to tap the tempo because I know at -50, the record is what 133.3.
Yeah.
So I know if I go to -50, what is it? It's going to be 66 BPM, right?
Yeah.
So I can actually just program that here. I don't even need to tap it in. I can tap in 60.
Yeah.
And I can show you how this mixer can actually do some looping, even though it's not supposed to. It's only supposed to be able to do like delay, but it actually can do like short bars of loops or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just looped the bass drum. That's
Yeah.
like just a 909 bass drum I have on the record for a bit of fun. So again, the issue here then is you don't have any way to like undo or
Yeah.
underdub, as I like to call it. On loop pedals, you got the overdub. I like to call it underdub when you got like, let's say, you hold the pedal down for 2 seconds and it deletes a layer.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is if you dub down for a second with your max volume, you can dub out for a second with your max volume and dub back in, and you do start kind of getting some fluidity there, which is really interesting because that's one of the things that holds back these techniques where you use a delay as a looper. But anyway, so I'll start adding some sounds now. I'll do the bass line I was talking about earlier. It'd be hard with one hand. What was it? Who's this? So yeah, it was cool. Like I was saying, it was just super natural, and using just the normal fundamentals on the turntable just like happened to be layering up with exactly what I was playing.
Yeah. And
because it's 1 bar now, it's hard to do something fun with like record a long progression with the or something, which is the most natural, like instinctively thing like that you would do.
Yeah.
But
is your monologue there? If you play the keys, is it?
I'll turn it on. I just plugged this one in the other day. I was using the other setup over here, which is only battery operated, but it's just turning on there. It should work. So I'll go into MIDI mode here by pressing 33 and 45 together. It activates the MIDI mode. Yeah, like I said, I haven't used this one to do it yet, so I might have to just go into edit and I gotta go into global edit, MIDI channel 1, MIDI channel 1, clock source. Let's see. I'll boot up this other lad, see if the batteries will stay on. So go to MIDI mode. Alright, yeah, this one is working. So yeah, this is so it's -50 on the turntable. So you get like a couple of extra notes down,
Yeah.
you get -10. So I guess you'll get the 1, 2, 3, 4. So you'll get down to about F E G sharp probably. But so yeah, C, this bottom C is like your interesting note because it's -50.
Is it going higher when you press the lower keys?
I'm just looking at it here now. That's 1 octave right there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna turn it off MIDI mode. So now it's at 0. Now it's at -50. Now it's at +50. So that isn't 2 octaves. That's 1 octave.
Yeah.
Right. So that is interesting. And so that's what it is. It's the -50 is doing a full octave, but the +50 isn't giving you a full octave. It's only giving you half of that, I guess. It's that's the important thing is that when you're going plus, the resolution is half what it is in
Oh, I know why that is. I know why it is because it's at 100%. So when you go -50, it's at 50%. So it's an octave. But when you go plus 50%,
of
150 is
100.
not twice 100. So
Yeah,
it's only going up half an octave. That's why it
yeah,
is.
yeah. That's what's happened. Yeah. So my maths were kind of right. It's
Yeah.
double. It's double what it is in the other direction, but the one direction is actually only 1 octave, not 2 octaves. That's the
Yes. I'm
part.
glad we
Yeah, that is good to know. Yeah.
solved that.
Um,
I love a bit of maths. It's great.
but there is something interesting about. I think the turntable still can do 3 octaves is like its full range that it does.
Yeah.
But that's another whole set of mind maths. Um, so yeah, that's the record being played with a keyboard. Um,
Oh, dog. Cool.
I naturally just going for the pitch instead of using the keyboard. Like still my brain still isn't in it
Yeah.
to just rely on it. But yeah, but that's what I'm most interested in is in using this to kind of notate what I want to do with this.
Yeah. The keyboard layout is kind of made for that kind of. It's easy to see an octave on it,
Yeah.
whereas like the pitch faders is very unintuitive to figure out like how much is
Well,
actually
well.
moving.
Again, the resolution thing. So
Yeah.
when you go to -50, your -10 plus 10 is quite a lot. You can get a lot of notes. You can get, I think, yeah. So it's well, we talked about 2%. So it's in theory there's a lot of ground you can cover there.
5 semitones up and down roughly.
When you go up though to 0, that resolution becomes a lot less. So you start
Yeah.
to get a lot less control over what you're hitting. So again, back up the higher you go, you get less. So down at -50 is a really interesting space because of that.
Yeah.
So then this is the other turntable guy, which we'll just talk about for a minute. It's the PDX 2300, which came before the 3000, the MIDI one, and it has a little joystick here.
Yeah.
One of the left and right is basically equal to the ultra pitch, so it gives you -50 plus 50
Yeah.
just at the press of a button, so you don't have to like move it back to the center point. So like you can go -50 easy, but to drop it back to 0, it takes some technique to get right spot on back in 0, like musically. So having the button there just to go down and up, I guess, could be handy. But the other one they have there, which isn't anywhere else available in like it's equivalent to what we used to in DJing. When they started experimenting with torques and stuff on turntables, people don't like touching the records for mixing, but you sometimes need to nudge on a record. Digitally these days it's called nudge. But so they added a thing on the joystick here, which is basically -2 and +2. And so they act as your like nudges, so you don't have to touch the record to bring your like song in time. But
Yeah.
I was looking at it, and to me, it sounded very much just like dropping down or adding a semitone.
Yeah.
Like, I have a technique when I'm playing a record. If I just touch the side of the record, I can get like an extra semitone. So let's say you're going -10, 0, +10, -10, 0. You're going to 0, -10. You want to get another semitone down, but you don't have access to it. I can pretty much um,
Yeah. Impressive.
so I can pretty much access a semitone up and a semitone down just with techniques physically.
Yeah.
But but this turntable has a digital readout, so
Yeah.
it actually could show me exactly that this nudge it has is -2 and +2, and it sounded identical to me of these like techniques that I use to achieve the lower semitone you don't have access to, let's say for example. And so it got me thinking, okay, so this 2% is, it's not an arbitrary number, just it makes sense mechanically, and it's there for the purpose of the nudge. To me, it's a musical number of sorts. It's there for a reason, you know. I guess
Yeah.
it's a division of the 10. You know, they're all like divisions of each other.
Yeah.
Uh, like on a Stanton, when you have +8, they have a double button that goes to +16. Like, why isn't it just +8 or +20? Like, they're never like random like that. It's
Yeah.
always the confinements of the turntable. So, yeah, I got this turntable for the exact same reason. Like I got the 3000s, was just
Yeah.
to kind of experiment with these like rules, potential musical rules, and try and get to work on some sort of practical fundamentals for the turntable as a musical instrument.
Sounds great. It's making me think of like, using the turntable or someone like yourself, like in an ensemble with musicians. There's like new possibilities for that.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Even like Jack plays the uilleann pipes, so like
Yeah.
drones, having a drone is something we're often thinking about.
Yeah.
Like the reed in an uilleann pipe and the needle on a turntable are very similar. That's
Yeah.
another thing with like similarities and all this stuff. Um, Jack Bill's uilleann pipes and cymatic is involved in the culture of building cutting heads and needles, and he has his own lathe. We have our own lathe at cut and paste, and he's closely knows Henry very well, and Henry has his own lathe, and so there's always been conversations about the crossover there with
Yeah.
how different things overlap, and so that's something that sparked my more recent kind of curiosity and all this stuff of the seemingly arbitrary mechanics of a turntable having this maybe just overlap with musical rules and fundamentals. Maybe it's not an accident. Maybe they're there for a reason, or maybe it's just an overlap, a natural overlap. You know, but so it's always been something that's come up, is these kind of like similarities between these different aspects of different things. So
Yes. Super interesting stuff. Well, I'll just start like wrapping up because my dog's like giving me dirty looks and needs dinner.
yeah,
But
no,
what's coming up next for you? Any
we have
events or
Community Scratch Poland is happening in 2 weeks. I'm not going to be able to make it, unfortunately. I have a Galway tournament I run up here, a Street Fighter tournament. We were running a major. We have players coming from all over Europe to
right?
in Galway for the first time ever, tournament of this scale. So I'm really excited about that. Wild Atlantic Wave Dash, that's happening here.
What would be
That's,
like the first prize? Is there prizes?
every player puts in money, and that's the prizes. So yeah,
Cool.
you pay like money into the tournament, and then you pay into the game. You pay
Yeah.
money into the event, and then you pay money into each tournament, and the money into the tournaments all goes to the players. But yeah, so that clashes with my Poland event. So I'm
Yeah.
not going to make it out to Community Scratch Poland this year, but that's happening again out in Krakow. That's going to be unreal.
Cool.
And then Community Scratch Barbecue in Brighton is happening August 23rd and 24th.
Ah.
And then next year is the 20th Scratch Games. But yeah, go check out Birth of the Sun on my Bandcamp. Check out Dolly's World on my Bandcamp. Check out Perfect KO on Cut and Paste Records. I haven't published anything myself with the record yet, other than like I performed at the games with it, and I did the tour back in March of the Birth of the Sun album, so I used it on that. But I'm currently finalizing the video for that, so none of that's published yet. So you
Cool.
can't see me scratching that record anywhere yet, but you can see lots of other people online using it on Instagram, and go check it out. It's a dope experimental record. If you're into vinyl at all, it's a cool thing. If you're into making music, it's basically like a sampler, a VST, a drum machine. There's a Nintendo sound chip hidden in there. It's a dope scratch record. It's like a cool Jimmy Penguin mean record also. Like yeah, a lot of love went into it, and yeah, I'm really happy with it. Shout outs to Joe Neary, did the artwork as well. One of my Street Fighter buddies. Yeah, I could go on and on about that record and how it came to be, and yeah, sure, we'll catch up again. Do one of these again. I'm sure
Yeah.
a lot more we can talk about.
Congratulations on that record. It's like really, really cool innovation. It's great to just hear the story behind it and, you know, just trying to do something different on a record. A lot of things have been done. So it's pretty cool to do something that's not been done yet.
Well, that's the
Very
thing.
cool.
Like Henry, who cut it, or did the dub plates, he gets all these weird projects. Like, can you cut a record into a birthday cake, or you can cut a record into a piece of concrete? And
Yeah.
when people like us come, we're like, can you make this actually interesting piece of vinyl? And he's like, oh, cool, something actually cool to work on, you know?
Yeah.
So it's for him to be excited about it and be able to put some love into it as well is important for us, like, because it's all the different layers of different people involved that make it what it is. It's not as but definitely by no means just my record. It's countless people have gone in from inspiration over the years behind into everyone who went and actually physically helped make it. It's like so much love and effort and energy and blood, sweat, and tears went into it. So yeah, fucking love it. So now it's just
Cool.
all up to the rest of the world to see what they can do with it. So,
Bye, everyone. So, yes, thanks so much for chatting, Jimmy. And thanks, everyone, for watching, commenting. And I'll put those in when I upload this. This will be like, yeah, description. I'll put in the links to the records you mentioned. And click on the links and buy the records, everyone.
do it.
All right.
All right,
See ya.
nice one, Dan. Legend.
Cheers. Bye bye.
Peace.